Yeah, probably that's all. That's what we do all the time, kind of fighting the latency.
Right. Okay, we're live, so we can get started. So welcome everybody. Happy October. Good to see you again here. So just quick housekeeping. Just a reminder on the community code of conduct. If you have any questions, I mean, feel free to look at the text there. But this is something we do for all of our events. And in terms of agenda, it might seem light, but we have a chock full of new demos and sneak peeks that I'm going to ask Igor to help us with, along with some of the community news. So without further ado, we'll get things started on the community front. Just wanted to highlight a blog post. I think a lot of the features that were talked about in this blog post by Artyom, I think this was done published a week after our community call last week. So I think Igor did a great job of giving you a sneak preview, but that he'll sort of go into more depth today. But talked about our support for streaming data in addition to a traditional batch data and even the union between the two, and talked about some of the use cases like e-commerce, obviously where you get a lot of transactional data coming in. The streaming data sources are important. So we start with KSQLDB. I think several months ago we had our friends from Materialize come and talk to us about working with Cube plus Materialize, for example, and we have other plans going forward for streaming data support. And also Lambda pre-aggregation is a new feature. I think, like Igor, you gave us a quick sneak preview of that last month. But basically allows you to do obviously pre-aggregations on both streaming and batch data. So if you haven't taken a look at this, I encourage you to take a look at this, and then I'll talk about our workshop that's coming up tomorrow as well. So in terms of events, we've had a lot of workshops. Over a 2-week period, we had a workshop with some of our friends at Altinity, Preset, and Firebolt. So we had ones that were coming up really quick. I mean, I think I got a couple of questions on Slack as soon as the event's over, including this community call slides, and the recording should be up pretty quickly. I think with the one from Preset, we had to wait a few days because we had to wait for Preset to provide us with a link to their video. But they should all be up. So just look for these icons. I can quickly go to one of the events pages to show you. If you go to the event page of the event that happened in the past, like replacing Looker with Superset and Cube, it's pretty prominent. You can play the videos and also view the slides. So we made it pretty streamlined and simple when we updated the events page. So if you missed it, or if you were there and wanted to sort of revisit some of the content, feel free to return to the events page. Cool. And then along with our virtual workshops or virtual events, we had our first participation at a major conference, October 2022. This was in Austin last week. This was organized by Confluent, but I think it was beyond Kafka was a theme, basically streaming data in general. So I believe there were about 2,000 people that showed up at the convention center in Austin, and we had a huge presence there. About 10 of our colleagues. So you got a couple of pictures of people after they was done setting up the booth, and then people visiting us during the show floor hours. So yeah, I mean, I think we had a good conversation with a lot of people who came to visit us. We were actually somewhat surprised that a lot of people were already familiar with who we were, or even they've used us in the past. So it was obviously easier to have conversations with those with the people, and we had to sort of introduce like the headless BI category for people that were new, but we were very happy with our first like in-person event that we participated in, and we have plans for a lot more. So stay tuned. We might be coming close to where you are located. And I mentioned the next workshop is tomorrow, about 24 hours from now. And then we'll be talking about headless BI with streaming data. That's the title. And we have our two co-founders, RTM and Pavel, sort of leading the discussions. And obviously Igor and I'll be there as well in case you have any questions. But if you haven't reserved your seat yet, I mean, you can go ahead and register on the event page. And as you can see, we made the registration pretty streamlined as well. All you basically need to do is type your name and work email and click the red button, and then you're ready to go. It doesn't take you to like a separate form like we did in the past. I think we had you sent to a Zoom event registration form, but you can just take care of it, right on the event page. So much more streamlined and pretty simple. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to see a lot of you there. I saw a lot of people register over the past couple of days, so I'm sure there'll be a few more people, a lot more people joining us in the next day or two. Yeah, in terms of like other workshop, I think this is my last. Oh, sorry. Oh, I have one more update. But in terms of other workshops, we'll probably have at least a couple more planned rest of the year before the Christmas holidays. And we'll make more announcements. Igor is going to talk about our new feature that we're announcing tomorrow called Views. We'll definitely have a workshop on that either in November or December. And we're working with our other partner communities to see if we can organize something before the end of the year. So we're planning to have at least a couple more by the end of the year. So stay tuned. And sort of going back to in-person event, we'll also be sponsoring Trino Summit that's hosted by Starburst on a little less than a month from now, November 10th. And it's going to be in San Francisco. We understand, I guess they're expecting like a few hundred people to show up. So if you happen to be in the Bay Area, there'll be at least a couple of us that are going to the event in San Francisco. So just let us know on Slack if you're going to be there. We love to meet you in person. Happy to be one of the sponsors for this event. And there's also a virtual way to sort of join the event as well, in case you're not traveling. Like a lot of conferences, I think this one's also hybrid, and they might be expecting more people to join online. But if you're in San Francisco, let us know. We'll be very excited to see you. And then, yeah, you'll probably see us in more events going in the future, and we'll let you know as soon as we finalize these plans. Cool. Let me pause there. And I think, Igor, you're up next. So I'll turn things over to your capable hands, and let me stop sharing. There we go.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, and I'll be sharing my screen and jumping into some really great product updates that we have. So yeah, first of all, I'll just do a quick reminder to everyone that we have a public roadmap on GitHub. So yeah, feel free to follow by the link, or just take a look at this screenshot of the current state of that roadmap. So I'm really happy to announce that, well, we are pretty much on track with everything here, and a lot of things which are in progress, and also a few things that are in the done column we'll be covering today. I'll be happy to do so. So yeah, we'll talk about most of the things. So I would probably break everything into two groups. So there are a number of updates that the team was working on. They are all about consuming and working with real-time data, and also this is actually something that we are releasing tomorrow, but yeah, we are doing a sneak peek today in this community call. There is also a huge update to the Cube's data modeling, and that's something I would say that is, it probably was anticipated, but by someone, given all their turbulence and a lot of conversations in the data community around how to define metrics, how proper metrics layer should be set up. We are tackling those questions with this update. But first things first, let's first jump into the real-time update. So I'll be really quick on the KSQL-DB integration, because this is something that we already demoed in the last community call, and also you already mentioned that. However, this is crucial for the rest of the conversation here. So yeah, in a nutshell, with this KSQL-DB integration, we are pursuing the dream that we always have had while working on Cube. So we want a Cube to be this kind of single, unified, headless data access layer. No matter what kind of data sources you have, so it can be streaming data sources, like say Kafka, or it can be batching data sources like your regular cloud-based data warehouses like Snowflake or Redshift. So now it's fully possible with for Cube to be accessing data in any kind of data sources. So we selected our focus kind of in a way that we support Apache Kafka, which is obviously the most popular event streaming platform in the world. And KSQL-DB is also an open source project, which was built to play well with Kafka streams, right? But it's not an event streaming platform, it's a streaming database. So basically, with KSQL-DB, you can materialize in a way, kind of materialized views work, materialize the data in Kafka streams, process it. You can do some computations on the KSQL-DB side, and then expose those materializations to Cube. So with this KSQL-DB integration, Cube is now able to read data from KSQL-DB and obviously to consume data from Apache Kafka, to consume streaming data. And the good news is that that KSQL-DB integration is also enables Cube to work with Red Panda, which is a well-known rival to Kafka, another it's not open source, but it's source available project, and it's really fast. At least that's how it's marketed. So yeah, with this KSQL-DB integration, Cube now works with Kafka and Red Panda. So yeah, there are docs for this, and if we browse it, we'll see that while setting up Cube to work with KSQL-DB, it's just as simple as with any other data source. So you just specify the Cube.js DB type, equals KSQL-DB, provide the URL and credentials, and you're done. And as you can see here, this example credential, they are for the Confluent Cloud, where you can run and host your Kafka cluster and your KSQL-DB cluster simultaneously. So it's really convenient. So yeah, and just for the demo purposes, I'll show once again this real-time dashboard demo, which is built with Kafka and KSQL and Cube. So their architecture here is that we are looking at a web page which generates events on schedule, and also we can generate some events on our own, and they go to the Twilio segment from where they are streamed into Kafka, and then KSQL-DB is reading data from Kafka, materializing into some tables, and then Cube reads the data from KSQLDB and exposes an API which we are consuming on this very page. So as you can see here, there are some events flowing. There are some users online here. Yeah, so I'm not the only one viewing this page, and I can generate some more clicks here. And as you can see, the data is indeed flowing. We see some events appearing on this chart. We see the button clicks counter increasing, and and also we can view the historic perspective of this. So if you wonder how it all works, how it's all set up, I can jump into Cube Cloud and show you the schema for this. So first I'll show the environment variables. So you can see that it's indeed a KSQLDB driver type, and we are working with a KSQL hosted in Confluent Cloud. So but on the data schema level, it's pretty much the same as for any other data source. So you just define a roll-up pre-aggregation, so the default type pre-aggregation, and you just specify what measures and dimensions you're gonna read from this events table, which is materialized by KSQLDB, right? So pretty much what would you expect from a batch data source like Snowflake or BigQuery, but that's coming from KSQLDB over Kafka. And if we go here in the playground, well, we can certainly see how it works. So right now, for their very last moment of time, their events count is 683, and if I reload, the page will certainly see a different number because the events are flowing. Okay, it's 95 already, and you can probably see that this node that the query is accelerated with pre-aggregations because the data from KSQLDB, it comes into Cube Store, and that's why the query is quite kind of fast, right? So this demo gives us a solid ground to discuss this feature, which is called streaming pre-aggregations. So the pre-aggregations that we were looking at right now, they are kind of different type. They are called streaming because the underlying data source is a streaming database. So the real difference is that regular pre-aggregations or pre-aggregations over the batch data source, they follow the pool model, right? So Cube has to continuously check the data freshness and pull the data. For streaming pre-aggregations, it's different. So streaming databases like KSQLDB, they are pushing their updated data into Cube. It means that Cube stays up to date at all times. And another consequence of this is that you don't need to care and you don't need to define any refresh keys. So something like every 5 minutes, or a complex SQL expression, that's something that you don't need to define. So as you already understood, the streaming pre-aggregations, they currently work with KSQLDB, but we're working on bringing other streaming databases like Spark Streaming or Materialize to Cube. But it's always best to build with real world use cases in mind, right? So if you're using KSQLDB or Materialize, Flink SQL, Spark Streaming, or any other streaming database or streaming platform in your company, and you're thinking of using Cube with them, well, feel free to reach out to us. We'll be really curious to hear about your use cases. So now you know that technically there are two kinds of pre-aggregations, right, in Cube. So you have kind of regular pre-aggregations for batch data. You have these streaming pre-aggregations for streaming data. And actually, these enable a new way to a new way to accelerate your queries. So we decided to introduce Lambda pre-aggregations, which follow the so-called Lambda architecture, and basically they union both types of pre-aggregations, the batch and streaming pre-aggregations, into a single way to access real-time data, while having the same interface, the same APIs that you always had. So, in a nutshell, Lambda pre-aggregations, this is a high-level feature that allows you to combine the batch data and real-time data. And in terms of Lambda architecture, that would be called kind of the batch layer, for data which is not that recent, and the speed layer for data which is updated real time, which is probably changing right now. And there are actually two ways you can set up Lambda pre-aggregation. There are two use cases for them. So the first one would be to combine a regular pre-aggregation with a streaming pre-aggregation. Like, for example, when you have your data warehouse in BigQuery, and there are events streaming into the data warehouse, but you wanna do calculations which incorporate the whole body of data, including the most up-to-date ones. For that, you'll probably stream their new events into some streaming platform like Kafka, and then use Cube to read both from BigQuery and Kafka through KSQLDB, for example. And another use case. Here's a schema, right? So probably that would help understand what I'm talking about, right? So the first use case for Lambda pre-aggregation allow you to union the batch pre-aggregation with the streaming pre-aggregation, and as you can see, their API or the interface to the data is the same, right? So you just fire your usual query through a SQL API, GraphQL, or REST API, and Cube unions the data while processing the query. Another use case would be to not use a streaming pre-aggregation or any streaming platform, but set up Cube in a way that it will union their batch pre-aggregation with a chunk of source data from a data warehouse. Obviously, that wouldn't be as fast as unioning data from readily available pre-aggregations, because you'll have to query your data warehouse, and probably it would respond in a second or so. However, this allows you to have their most up-to-date state available to all data apps downstream of Cube, without rereading the whole data from your data warehouse, or having to read any significant amount of data. So let me show how this all can be set up. So for the most interesting scenario where you have your batch pre-aggregation, and you just set up a Lambda pre-aggregation that would union the batch data with the source data. You just have to set up your regular pre-ag, and then reference this pre-ag in another pre-aggregation call with a type rollup lambda, right? So this is a new special type. But if you define the pre-ag like this, and reference a rollup pre-aggregation into this, the only thing that you need to do is just to set up this flag union with source data to true. That would instruct you for any query which span, by its time dimension, in a way that it overlaps with the data in this batch pre-ag, and it would take a part of data from this batch pre-aggregation defined by the build range start and build range end, and read the rest of the data from your underlying data source real time. Yeah. So, and obviously for another use case would be to use a streaming data, but it's kind of the same. You have your batch pre-aggregation, you have your streaming pre-aggregation, the one you can have with ksqldb, right? You can see that it's defined, for another cube which might have the data source like ksqldb, and this user's cube may have another data source like BigQuery, and then you just reference both ones in the rollup lambda type pre-aggregation, and you're done. This is your way to query the data now. So with this update on lambda pre-aggregations, we are now confident that regardless of what kind of data source you have, be it only regular databases or cloud-based data warehouses, be it streaming platforms, you're able to connect them all to Cube and have real-time data flowing into your data apps. And even if you don't use streaming platforms and streaming databases, now with lambda pre-aggregations, you're able to set up Cube in a way that's shown currently on the slide, right? And still have your real-time data flowing into your data app at a very low cost, because you don't need to read the whole data from the underlying data source, but with all the benefits. So yeah, that per lambda pre-aggregations. And at this point, there is only one update that I want to reveal, but it's really exciting one. So this is something that we are gonna announce tomorrow, and this is a feature that is, which is called views. So views expand and enhance what's already in Cube's data modeling layer. So this is the biggest update to our data modeling layer since 2019, when Cube was first released. So we are pretty excited about this. You can think of views as something really similar to cubes, but the difference is that views can serve as topmost layer of the graph of cubes that you have. So you can define views to serve as using this engineering term, a public layer or public part of your data model. However, views are totally opt-in, so if you don't need them, you just don't use them. They are, as I said, they are similar to cubes, but the real difference is that they don't define their own dimensions and measures. They just reference measures and dimensions from the cubes that you already have. So before the introduction of views, your data model would look as a graph of cubes which have their own measures and dimensions, and they have and which also have joins between them. And now with views, you can design your data model in a way that the queries which are incoming from your SQL API or REST API or GraphQL API, they are querying the measures and dimensions which are exposed through views, and not the measures and dimensions that your cubes have. And you may wonder, okay, but why would anyone want to do that, right? What are the benefits, or what are the use cases for views? So from our conversations and from what we learned, working with Cube's community, there are three main use cases. I'll actually start with the third one, because this is something that we seen a lot in conversations on our Slack, right? And this is something that probably would spark this kind of aha moment in many folks who frequent Cube's Slack communities. So as I said, views reference measures and dimensions from the cubes, right? And when you're doing so, now you're able to provide this kind of fully qualified join pass, and say that you don't only want to reference the name dimension from the countries cube, but you want to do so by traversing that join pass in a particular way. So you can say something like orders.users.countries.name, and that would be that exact join pass and not something else. The other use case for views is the access control. So you can design views so they sit as on top of your cubes, and you're able to control what views are available and to whom they are available, right? So you can use this shown property that every view has, and that property could read from the security context, right? So you can check, for example, for the permissions, for different flags and other metadata that you can supply in the security context, and that will allow you to really easily set up views in a way that only certain data consumers, like apps or users, right, like different teams or individuals, what they can access. And another use case for views, and probably that is something that I referred to when I mentioned some conversations in the data community. This is a way to define metrics. So as you know, views don't define their own measures and dimensions, but they reference the ones from other cubes, right? So you can decide to define a view that would reference a single measure and a number of dimensions, right? So that would be really similar to what you can do with Looker's Explore, or what you can do when creating a materialized view on top of with a single aggregation column in your data warehouse. You can probably be doing this with a data transformation tool, right? And with that, views allow you to create something that would have a nice scope name, that would be the view name, and a single metric that you can access, and also number of dimensions that make sense to be used to break that measure down. So now I'd like to show you how the views can be set up, and yeah, we have a docs page for them as well. So in the most trivial use case, you would just define a view to include a number of measures and dimensions. So in this case, there's only single measure included into this active users view, but you can obviously include more. So in this case, you'll be able to access them as active users dot rolling count or dot isPaint dot sign update. Well, there's also a way to reference measures and dimensions one by one, and yeah, that's a more wordy approach, but it provides you more flexibility, and also it provides you a way to control the join paths if you want. And yeah, and obviously you can you can use the shown property here if you wanna some of the views to be available to every data consumer, some of the views to be available only to certain ones. With that, you can read the metadata from the security context and make sure that only users with right permissions can use them. So yeah, these are views, right? And there is one more thing that I wanted to show you. So this is a blog post that on views that we're gonna publish tomorrow. So stay tuned for the link appearing in our Slack community or on Twitter. But something that I really want to show in this community call is this second tab to the data model that we have here. So we have this JavaScript definition for view, and here you can see how that might look like when expressed in YAML. So something that the team is currently working on is this YAML syntax for Cube's data models. It's still work in progress, but it's coming later this year. So stay tuned for the updates. And if you want to write less JavaScript and write more YAML, as a proper data engineer would probably do, then that update probably will get well reception. So with that, that's all for my part, and I think that's all for the slides that we have.
Cool. Thank you, Igor. Yeah. Go, if you have any questions, please jump in. No questions? Yeah, I mean, we're obviously pretty excited about this. Like Igor said earlier, this is like a first major update to our data modeling since we started. And as I mentioned earlier, we plan to have a workshop on this. As Igor mentioned, like some of the other features are still being worked on to be completed. So I think it goes well with one of the topics that a lot of people have requested in the past is sort of we already did a data modeling workshop. They wanted to sort of the next iteration of that, like with different pre-aggregations. So I think this comes in pretty handy. And the blog post, I assume it'll go out at 8 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow. So it'll be like officially unveiled, but as with all open source projects, things are already out of the box. If you search enough in the docs pages, like new pages are already there. If you have any questions, jump on Slack and ask us questions. And yeah, looks like we have a question from Hardeep. Are pre-aggregations limited to a range provided?
Yeah, that's a cool question, and I believe you referred to their Lambda pre-aggregation setup that I was showing. So, well, indeed, the batch part that you set up, it should be it should have their range options in it. However, as far as I remember how that can be set up, it's possible to to configure that quite flexibly. So I'm currently I probably need a minute to go through the docs to to find to find the exact options. But the thing is, yeah, you set up the batch pre-ag in a way that it follows the current time, but it's not exactly there, right? So Cube is actually able to build that and make and just know at what moment of time it should stop serving the data from pre-ag and start serving it from the real-time data source, right? Yeah. Okay. So there are some dates. Oh, okay. Okay, so the question is, so if a pre-ag is for 30 days and the query comes for 7 days, does it get accelerated? Well, definitely. Yeah, so you don't need to specify different pre-aggregations for different time ranges. Obviously, this is true if the pre-aggregations have the right granularity, right? So, for example, if you have a pre-aggregation with the weekly granularity, right? So it has a data point for every week that you have, right? So and you do a query with the monthly granularity, that there is no way Cube would be able to use that pre-aggregation, because obviously the start and the end of every month doesn't match. Starts and ends of weeks, right? But if you have your pre-aggregations, say with daily granularities, then obviously a single pre-aggregation would work, for a query that spans 30 days and for a query that spans 7 days, no problem.
Cool, thanks. Great. Yeah, I think I mispronounced your name, Harmandeep. I apologize. I have a friend named Hardeep, so when I saw your name, I just reverted to calling you like my friend. So apologize for that. Bruce, did you have a question? I may have cut you off, but maybe I didn't. But
no questions from me, but stoked to see the announcement. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. So we're pretty excited. I mean, let us know. I mean, I think everyone on the call or watching the recording know how to get a hold of me or Igor. I mean, could ping us with questions. Yeah, as any feedback as we sort of continue improving our data modeling and make it easier for everybody, that would be great. So yeah, I think it looks like that's a wrap. It's just another quick reminder on the workshop tomorrow. If you want to know more about Headless BI with real-time streaming, and you'll get a chance to grill our co-founders, RTM and Pavel, which Igor and I like doing too. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool. All right, thanks everybody. Hopefully I'll see many of you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.